and abroad. And he's had a very successful career as an academic. He was a professor and HOD at Pondicherry University. He has also authored several articles and books. He published 7 volumes of his poems and sketches. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and collaborating with Alliance Francaise for this event. And next we have Mr. Sadanand Menon. He's a nationally reputed arts editor, columnist, and photographer. He's currently on the editorial advisory board of Mark Magazine, Mumbai, and is a columnist with the online news portal Asiaville. He's also a recipient of Kerala government's prestigious Kerala Balakrishna Pillai Award for his contribution to the art criticism. It's an honor to have you here with us tonight, and welcome to the event. Finally, I'd like to welcome Eva ma'am. She's the director of Alliance Francaise of Trivandrum. Now, I'd like to give you all the agenda for tonight. First, we'll have 8 minutes of the exhibition visit, after which you all can come back to the meeting, which would be followed by speeches by Eva ma'am, Mr. Sadanand Menon, and finally, Dr. Murali Sivaramakrishnan. We also have a Q&A session planned with which we'll conclude tonight's event. So I think without further delay, we can move on to the exhibition visit. I'll share with you all the link to the exhibition on the chat box. And once you've entered the exhibition, there's a button. You can click on any of the artworks to zoom in, and there are 2 buttons on the right bottom corner which you can use to navigate through the room. And yeah, it's pretty simple. That's about it. I'll share with you all the link now. We can have about 8 minutes for you to visit the exhibition, and you can just return back to the meeting. It won't be disconnected. You just have to come back to your Zoom app.
Hello, Srinivasan sir. Hi. We just had a, we are having a visit to the virtual exhibition. Priyanka had shared that detail. Have you got it? Priyanka, perhaps you can explain once again for the newcomers, that link.
I've shared the link on the chat box. If you could go to the chat box, you can see the link. And if you click there, it'll direct you to the website where the exhibition is hosted. And once you've entered the exhibition, if you can click on any of the artworks and it'll zoom you in so that you can have a more clearer look at it. And there are 2 buttons on the bottom right corner, left and right, which you can navigate, which you can use to navigate through the room.
There are 2 rooms.
Yeah, it'll automatically go like
right.
If you click, yeah. So then you can use it at your own pace. You can view it at your own pace.
Maybe you should unmute it, sir.
No, I said I can do it literally. You can carry on. So.
Yeah, okay. No, but this was what we had planned, so that we have a visit, a brief visit to the exhibition. Then you come back, and then we have our, discussions, and then we have a proper visit to the exhibition.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So how do I go there? She said some.
Yes, yeah. She has given the. You have your chat box open, sir. The chat box. She has shared the link to the exhibition in the chat box.
There's chat. But
Like below, you can see several options.
I see chat.
Participants, chat,
Yeah.
share.
Chat is there, sir, on
No,
your right side. Yeah, you click that, and then on the right side you have a link. The queensmatrix.com exhibition. Can you see that?
No.
No. Okay, perhaps you can visit it at your own leisure.
Yeah.
That's not it.
You can do it later.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Is anybody else having any problems?
You have to chat box. So to find the chat box, sometimes you use the bottom of the screen.
Somebody speaking? It's
Just
not clear.
Ma'am, your audio is breaking. Your audio is breaking a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it okay now? I was saying that if you
Yeah, it's okay now.
Your audio is breaking.
Chat box sometimes, because first you have to open the chat box, see the link. So the chat box is usually on the bottom of the screen. Then you on chat.
Eva, I'm afraid your voice is breaking. I can't hear.
I also can't hear you at all.
Yeah.
Maybe you could share it on the chat box with me.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
No, your audio. It's not audible.
Try without the earphone, maybe that may work.
Yeah. Maybe without earphone you can. Yeah, that's fine. It should be more audible. But
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I think you have some network issues because
No, the connection is like
it's breaking a
The
little.
voice is cracking
no.
and inaudible. I'm just getting a list of participants, nothing else.
yes, sir.
I'm not getting any link.
No, the link is there in the chat box on the right side, sir. If you
There's a list of names. There's a list of names.
No, not that.
No, not that.
Not
the
that.
next one, beside that, can you see an
Now if I
option
click,
called chat?
Chat?
There's one
No, sir.
chat. Yeah.
After participants, to the adjacent to participants, you can see chat box.
No, that says network problem.
Oh, okay.
That might be the problem.
Okay, but the link is always there, sir.
No, that is Mr. Pisharadi is saying network problem. I don't know. There is no link.
Yes, you'll see a link about that.
There is nothing. After chat, it says from Mr. Pisharadi, 6:19 p.m.
Okay.
Then says type message here.
No, I can send it directly to your phone, sir.
No, the phone was not working first of all. Now
Oh,
there
I
is a
see.
chat. Now now link has arrived.
Yes. See, the link has arrived. That is you can click on that link again.
I did that.
Yeah.
Something is happening.
Yeah. A small box will come, you enter the exhibition.
Okay.
Right. Because we decided there is no point in talking without visuals. So the visuals are already there, you know. We're
And
trying.
now you click each picture, you get the.
Pardon?
You click each picture to enlarge it, is it?
Yeah, that also is there. There are several options. You can go in and work your way through. Maybe we should have left the exhibition viewing after the inaugural.
Yeah, one didn't anticipate so many technical issues and
Technical issues, yes.
people joining late and so on.
Yeah, yes. Huh? Huh. Yeah, one by one, people are coming back.
How many paintings are there?
Around 44, sir, but paintings are set in different groups as well. We have diptychs, you know, where two paintings come together, and 5 of them at one go, like that. So it's not actual. Individually, you have different numbers, but when they are put on show, of course, you have your own ways of
But does
installing.
it have any number or title?
Yeah, it has. All the details are given there. You can actually click on the details on the right side. Descriptions of each painting, you know, the medium, which year it was made, the title of the painting, all those details are given there. Descriptions are available there. Maybe at the end of the whole thing, Priyanka will give a detailed description of, you know, how to view the exhibition too. After the formal inaugural launch.
Okay. So what are you waiting for now?
We're waiting for the participants to come back. You know, many of them have left to see the, you know, click the link and see the exhibition. They're coming back. We are already here. The panelists are already here. Priyanka, can we begin the
We can
proceedings?
start?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'd like to invite Eva ma'am to say a few words.
Thank you,
Hello?
Priyanka. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're very clear.
Oh,
Yes, yes. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'm very happy to see so many of you tonight. Well, I'm Eva Martin, so the director of Alliance Française de Trivandrum, and I am very, very pleased to host this first online painting exhibition by Mr. Murali Sivaramakrishnan. The current situation with this unprecedented health crisis, well, has forced us to confine ourselves, to stay at home, and abruptly separate us from others. and we all have been deprived of physical contact, of human warmth. In a way, I believe that we have been cut off from the world and at the same time from human being. But what is interesting is that we have been able to be creative in keeping in touch with our friends, our family, teachers, especially through new technologies. Um, However, I think that everyone has experienced loneliness or anxiety. Um, so, what can we do if not refocus in order to apprehend this new world, those tastes that we don't know yet? um, this crisis has this positive aspect, I think, that at least it allowed us to explore a part of our interiority. And tonight, Mr. Murali Sivaramakrishnan is giving us the pleasure of sharing with us a part of his own interiority through his paintings. Um, this exhibition, Interior Spaces, is 17th solo exhibition, and initially this exhibition was planned in April in our facility, but we had to cancel because we are closed since March. Actually, we are of course a bit sad to be close to the public, and we would like to have some exhibition, to have some French classes, but nevertheless, we are very, very happy to host the exhibition. So I hope you enjoy what you have seen, and that you will invite also your friend to visit this online exhibition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eva ma'am. Now, I think Mr. Sadanand Menon would also like to share a few words.
Yeah, thank you very much, and congratulations to Murali for putting together this stunning exhibition at a time like this. Congratulations to Alliance Française for having hosted this at a time when most people actually wondering what to do with these kind of forms, whether they are visual art forms or performing art forms. There is a whole sense of confusion and sort of a disarray. The entire art scene seems to be in some kind of a disarray and confusion. So I'm very glad that this is happening, and I believe for Alliance Française Trivandrum, this is maybe the first such exhibition during the lockdown, and that calls for a celebration, certainly. So thank you all of you, and thank you Priyanka for coordinating this whole thing. Now I'm not going to speak very much. I think those who have gone and seen the exhibition just now, for them it will speak in a particular way. There are 40 odd works, and one can call them kind of color compositions. I'm particularly happy to see the consistency with which Murali has been working for many years now, staying with the sense of the abstract. It's a very heavy field. It's not an easy field. I think the figurative is much more playful and much more accessible to people, whereas the abstract is extremely personalized, and it's a kind of a field that calls for concentration and focus, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, even though it's arguable that we are completely surrounded everywhere by what can be broadly called the abstract. Now, there are some interesting overlaps here. One is that as a collective, we have not just regionally or nationally, but even internationally, lived through a period of extreme abstraction in the last roughly 7 or 8 months, with the kind of abstract fear over an abstract virus, which has been depicted in all sorts of fantastic ways in visual representations, but it's an absolutely microscopic, invisible thing, and we don't know what exactly it is. And during this period, we have also learned to experience the abstraction of space and time, the sheer confinement and containment that we have been subjected to. Many people have resisted it, of course, and it's been very interesting to see that also in countries like America, for example. There has been an active resistance against containment, and a kind of going the daily schedule of life going completely out of sync. So there's a sort of very interesting, let's say, overlap between the sense of abstraction in philosophy, in literature, in art, and now what we've been experiencing in our own lives. So it is possible that this experience we have gone through in the last several months, in one sense, prepare us for viewing or entering the universe of abstract planes that Murali's work invites us into. And I think there'll be a sense of connect by the sheer context of the time in which this exhibition has appeared. Second, it's also the reality of the experience. We are all used to going into the Alliance Francaise, let's say, exhibition hall or the other galleries that are there, plenty in all over the country, and seeing in a more visual, directly visual or a more tactile way, experiencing works of art. Whereas here it's a double distance. It's a work that is within quotation real, but it's presented in a virtual space. And even while the white cube of the gallery is a virtual space, this new experience of the online gallery is a completely doubling of the distance. And in one sense, it prohibits us, it kind of restrains us from understanding until the technology for it really develops. Correct? I think we're at the infancy of this kind of technology, and I'm sure it will develop very fast. But until this develops, we'll have issues with recognizing, say, texture or depth or thickness or separation and such sort of details, which goes against the. In fact, it goes against the interest of the artist, that we are not able to experience that, from close quarters. So I think those of you who've taken a short tour now of the exhibition must have experienced the let's say, a bit disturbed, must have experienced the let's say the epiphany. It's something that I felt when you stand in front of those works of Murali that engage with the color red. I think there is a sense of epiphany when you confront that, or when you engage with something that is let's say of the blue, which is like wistful and melancholy, and there is a whole universe there which draws you in and makes you reflective and has all kind of suggestive spaces in those blues, multiple hues, multiple thicknesses of blue, or the sort of brooding sense that you get in those canvases where he's working with black and gray. There is a sense of brooding, there's a sense of premonition of something. So these are like, say, emotions that are evoked and suggested by these works, and these are deployments that work in this artist's work, Murali's work. But then there are certain other canvases where the artist seems to be loading the canvas with more formal elements. And I can't show you here, but those who have seen the exhibition will realize what I mean, where there are graphic elements, more straight lines, horizontals, and so on, where clearly it's a planned device. It's not the spontaneity of the artist at work, but there's some planning going on. And the way I see it as, let's say, I mean, I loathe to call myself an art critic, but as a critical viewer, the way I see it, it would sort of detract from the artist's intent. This kind of formation, and the category within which the work that the abstractions of all kinds, and from the late 19th century, we have had the world of abstraction open out in visual art. I would like to categorize Murali's work in that sphere of what is called gestural abstraction, where quite liberally you work with the brush and you work you apply it in an uninhibited way, unrestrained way with sweeping gestures, and there is a certain positivity in that whole exercise. And when you see the sort of agency of thought coming in, you know, this has to happen in a certain sense of a rush of emotion, a rush of passion, a rush of some kind of intuition. But when thought enters it, sometimes it creates a certain block, as it were. And in fact, it's even more difficult when afterthought comes in. When afterthought comes in, it's almost lethal for something that needs to stick with spontaneity. So for me, the range of work here is therefore replete with all these kind of very interesting meanings. It talks back to me in a very special way and in a very rich way. Abstraction, of course, springs from reality. Abstraction is not something that is coming out of thin air. It's part of reality. It's part of our lived life. But often it transcends it in being undefinable. It has a certain quality that escapes a certain definitional kind of a contour, and therefore, it is often non-representational. It is meditative. It is a kind of depiction of something that is beyond just the visual, beyond just the direct act of visuality. Now, for example, one can imagine a group of people standing, let's say, at a bus stop or in a market, people wearing different kinds of colors and dress, and they are moving around. And you just close half your eyes and look at them as if you're looking through a drizzle or through a fog, and a certain kind of abstraction of the reality emerges in front of your eyes. It's a play of light and movement and color, which suddenly loses contour. And when it loses contour, it loses a certain definitional quality. But it's still reality. It's still that reality that you've been looking at, which otherwise you will be able to define. Yes, there are people, 4 people, 10 people, 15 people, somebody's wearing red, blue, green, whatever. But the moment that space emerges of fuzziness, the definitional quality vanishes, and a kind of a gestural element pops up, where just through emphasizing one aspect of that or the other, you define reality in a completely different way. So this is something that I'm quite familiar with, because I have for almost 40 years worked with 2 of India's greatest artists, who one was Chandralekha, who worked with dance and choreography, and was probably one of the most abstract practitioners of the for movement form in the Indian context. And Dashrath Patel, who the founder of the NID in Ahmedabad, who was a painter and a designer and photographer, again, whose visual work represents a high pinnacle of abstractionism, his collages particularly. So I'm quite familiar with the kind of questions that come up when the works of such artists are put in the public space. It's always, the public goes to it with a very interesting sense of anxiety. It's like, what does this mean? I can imagine, I've come across this many times in Chandralekha's work. People would come up and say, it was fantastic, but for heaven's sake, tell us what it meant. So the search for meaning in abstraction is an anguish. It's because in a certain way, we are accultured into narrativity. We are accultured into being a narrative species. We like storytelling. We like to describe. We like to have our commas and full stops and semicolons and exclamation marks. And this needs a form that encourages narrativity and not something that can be sought in the abstract. So to seek meaning in a dot or a line or a curve or a slash is often a futile exercise. Very interestingly, the very same people who ask this question will not ask this question when they stand in front of, let's say, a sunrise or a sunset. Nobody says, oh, what does it mean? It's very clear what it means, but you don't ask for meaning in why the gold light and the red and the pink and the yellows are overlapping and the orange is coming up. And you don't ask those questions. Why is it happening? You don't ask. It's a phenomenon in nature, and you understand it in a manner which is called experiential. You experience it. You don't use the rational faculty there. You don't use put your thinking cap there. You become sensual. You experience it through your pores, through your sentient elements, the eye, the ear, the skin, etc., whatever you have sharpened over the years. So for abstract art, this would always be the plea that when you stand in front of it, learn to keep the thinking hat a little away and learn to experience it. Not to be afraid of experience, not to be afraid to say, I don't think I understand, but I respond. I respond to a color, a particular kind of energy, a particular kind of overlapping, which you might only see in these kind of occasions, like inside a garbhagriha of a temple, darkness and one fantastic icon, and then oil lamps burning, and you're not seeing anything clearly, but you see through the haze, you see something which is not, within quotation, recognizable, but it speaks to you. It makes some meaning for you. And I think the world of abstraction provides that kind of meaning at a deeper plane, which is why the history of modern art, certainly through the 20th century, is a history of abstract movements. All the movements that one can think of, whether it is with periodic, let's say, contestations and confrontations with things like realism or the figurative, etc. Mostly the movements have been abstract, like Impressionism, Expressionism, Fauvism, Constructivism, Orphism, Surrealism, Cubism, you name it. Right up to pop and op and de Stijl, etc. There is a certain value the modern artist in the 20th century certainly felt in the need to create that space, either through the canvas or through more plastic material, of encountering something that is not easy to describe, that is not easy to, meaning doesn't come easily. And sometimes you have an artist like Magritte, René Magritte, who even creates a canvas and draws a pipe and says below that this is not a pipe, etc. So the need for seeking a meaning that is other than what is conventional, that is understood. Umberto Eco, the writer, often used to say that we need to have a guerrilla warfare at the borders of meanings. Otherwise, the meanings have got so conventional and so in a box, so like organized, that the artist's job is now to create a guerrilla warfare at the borders of meanings. And This is something that the abstract artist sort of launches into and undertakes with great amount of, I think, felicity. And the initiator of this movement, according to the art history, how do you say, canons, is supposed to be the Russian emigre artist Vasily Kandinsky. But we know that even earlier in the 19th century, around 1874, etc., there are artists who made works which laid the foundations for this kind of thing. For example, the very well-known story of James Whistler, who created a work in black and gold. It's called Nocturne in black and gold, I think 1874. And when the critic John Ruskin encountered that painting, he made a very, very interesting statement, which for a long time, in one sense, stood as a critique of abstract art. What John Ruskin said was, you make this work, Mr. Whistler, and you present it in the gallery and you charge us 200 guineas for it. It's like asking 200 guineas for throwing a pot of paint in the public's face. So it's abstract work has come in for this kind of criticism. And even now, often it is dismissed as art for art's sake and stuff like that. But I think if one goes into it seriously, you will find that there are many, many aspects to it, many elements in it. Now, for example, there is one set of abstract work in the history of art which clearly has a meditative quality. It connects with something that even the artist would call spiritual. I can think of Rothko, for example. Rothko's work has that kind of thing. It pulls you in. It makes you reflect on your own reality, etc., etc. But there are some equally opposite positions. For example, Maurice Lewis, who would completely deny anything to do with spirituality, with abstract work, and he would reject it completely, saying that it is a different plane. It's a plane of the real. It's not a plane of the mystical, etc., etc. So it's very clear that in the turn of the century, around the turn of the 20th century, in the early 1900s, many artists were influenced by the interventions of the Theosophists, people like Madame Blavatsky, etc. Who, I mean, Madame Blavatsky had a fantastic depiction of the world, description of the world. She said, we occultists believe that God geometrizes. Now, geometry is again one of the most interesting aspects of abstractionism. It's from the time of Plato. This was considered to be the most elegant way of understanding the world, which was through pure geometry, pure forms, symmetry, asymmetry, balance, whatever it is, but the idea of pure form, untrammeled by the needs of reality, etc., etc. So geometry led you to the idea of a universal balance, a universal language of communication and understanding. This, interestingly, is an equally old idea in the Indian context. Those who know a kind of history of Indian art, not just modern Indian art, but starting from much earlier times, will have encountered the idea of Tantra, for example, and how in Tantra, this is one of the most obvious and one of the most important constructs of how you understand the world, through different color planes, through geometric forms, which are for a tantrist, it is magical. It has that's why the word tantra, it is a talisman. It can open you, it's a key to a new world. You can open it out and enter that world through this work with color, form, image, symbol, etc., etc. And it has, of course, very deep influences on the Indian modern, whether it was the artists of the Shantiniketan school, or much later on people like G.R. Santosh and Birende, and the entire Madras movement, K.C.S. Panikkar and Vasudev and Vishwanathan and Nakkitam Narayanan. And I mean, the list is very long of people who stuck to that. And of course, the very famous works of Raza, S.H. Raza, Sayyid Haider Raza, who in the middle of his career cottoned on to the idea of the Bindu, which is a very tantric idea, that one small point, atomic point, which explodes to create the universe and contains the universe, etc., etc. So the role of that kind of semi-sacred geometric abstraction has played its role in Indian art in quite profound ways. And for me, always the idea of abstraction needs to transcend the world of art also. It has to look at other abstractions that the universe has lived with. And one of them was pointed out, and I keep sort of bringing this up whenever discussion comes up on abstraction. I keep bringing this up, the words of Karl Marx, who talked about the abstract theory of labor and value, where a man laboring, a proletarian laboring, or a worker in a field or a factory or wherever laboring, putting material body to work, is given an abstract value. You work for 10 hours, you get 300 rupees. You work for 12 hours, you get 500 rupees, something like that. You put a value to it. That's the most abstract thing in the world. This labor theory of value is one of the most abstract things because it is a tool for exploitation. So which is why within Marxian, let's say, interventions into art, there have been a lot of resistance to the idea of abstraction, because abstraction sometimes hides the reality, sometimes masks the reality. The famous proposition of Marx of the fetishism of commodities. It's a very interesting idea. Like, for example, I'm holding this pen in my hand, and this pen, you can go into a shop, any department store, any small roadside shop, and buy it for maybe 20 rupees, 15 rupees, whatever it is. But what the commodity hides, it's a commodity, but what it hides, which is called the fetishism, is the labor that has gone into it and the material that has gone into it. So, for example, to have this plastic body, obviously oil had, it's a residue of oil production and oil processing. So some extraction of natural resources has happened. And so to the metal tip of the pen and the ink that goes into it, and one by one you can itemize it. And all the labor and the material that went into it is hidden from me as the consumer, who simply goes into a shop, pays money for it and buys it. The sense of exploitation is hidden. So there is an abstraction in this labor theory of value, which is a very valuable thing. Unfortunately, not discussed enough in the art world, but I think it's happening. It's slowly beginning to manifest itself in various places. It did happen in a very big way in Latin America. Latin American artists, also filmmakers and visual artists, and led by the people like Diego Rivera and etc. etc. They cottoned on to this in the 1940s, but I think now the rest of the world is emerging as one of the things that one needs to evoke when one works with abstraction. Then, of course, the famous propositions of Theodor Adorno, the Frankfurt School philosopher, who equated the proliferation of abstraction in life, or sorry, the proliferation of abstraction in art in our times with the proliferation of abstraction in our social relationships. The fact that post-industrial society has converted all relationships into some sorts of abstractions and in one sense sucked away the real meaning of those relationships. For example, the relation between the proletarian and the bourgeois, or even in a family, between the patriarchal system between the men and the women, the gender sort of divisions, etc., etc. Adorno was very sure that the reason why there is a proliferation of abstraction in all kinds of art, including in music and in visual art, is because of this mirroring with social reality. More recently, the postmodernist scholar Frederick Jameson has also pointed out that the abstraction of art in one sense equals the abstract power of money, and how it sort of keeps people distanced from their realities, and a certain bureaucratization of life, a certain legality in life, alienation in life, and a certain social asymmetry, and how all this is mirrored in the way the artistic realm sort of absorbs that abstraction. And beyond this, of course, you have also the psychological realms which people like Carl Jung, etc., have worked with, who have pointed out that it's a specific aspect of the human subjectivity that makes us neutralize ourselves from the harsh reality and work with the idea of something more abstract. So now these are all very interesting, let's say, theoretical frames and cognitional frames within which abstraction could be understood and could be responded to. And I'm just pointing out some of these keys for people who want to enjoy and experience and sort of go deeper into the kind of work that Murali Sivaramakrishnan has been doing all these years. And I'm very glad to have been given this opportunity. Thank you very much, Murali. Thank you very much, Eva and Priyanka. I think I congratulate all of you, and I think the exhibition should be declared open and everybody should have an entry into it and enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for those insightful comments. Now, Dr. Murali Sivaramakrishnan, would you like to share your experience? It's your first time doing a virtual exhibition, isn't it? Could you please unmute your mic? It's still muted.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, thank you, everyone. As they say, after such knowledge, what forgiveness? Sadanand has been quite, he has given us a very broad spectrum analysis, intellectual, ideological, art historical, aesthetic, philosophical, sociological, and whatnot, the whole broad spectrum of art. And so one feels totally humbled when one looks at the whole canvas of aesthetic experience possible in front of you. And generally speaking, I was totally taken aback when I thought that I had a possibility for having a virtual exhibition of my works. We had planned this exhibition, as Eva Martin has very clearly said, sometime in April, when that was a normal show, or something like what we are normally used to, like paintings on the wall. You have rooms where visitors come and they respond to the works of art. They look at the color, they look at the shades, they look at the forms, they analyze things in terms of structure, texture or whatever, several levels, maybe hold a discussion with the artist or hold discussions among themselves and then write about it or discuss it. And that's the usual way in which we are so used to. And all of a sudden, this pandemic has burst into our life, and what a world of difference it has brought in. When an artist stands in front of an empty canvas and tries to visualize or tries to take an inward journey, or what, as Paul Klee would say, letting taking the line out for a walk, when you try to do that, when you try to be natural as you are wont to earlier, in these times, things become so complicated. Things have already become complicated, and you try to understand what you have been doing so far. And this is a time of reckoning, almost like a, when you are looking at your work and you are rescheduling your work from the normal which you are used to, putting them on the walls, and you are presenting them as a virtual show, as a virtual journey. It's a totally different experience. And I myself am amazed at the possibilities. Perhaps this is the state of art, and this is the future of all painting exhibitions or art exhibitions. We have things on the floor, we have things above, we have things on the wall, and we have different structures where you can experience. It doesn't really matter whether you are doing realistic work or super realistic work or naturalism or figurative work or traditional work or tantric art or postmodernist work or abstract art, you name them. These are all things which an artist who tries to explore his or her inner journeys will have to take up. And it's very difficult to take up a side or a stick to a particularism in these troubled times. These are quite complicated times, as Eva has very clearly said. She talks about uh, uh, loneliness and anxiety. Strangely enough, when I was asked to write a few sentences about my later works, in the 2019 and 20, I use these two words, loneliness, anxiety, and I also use the word, apprehension of the inner and the outer. I used two Tamil words, akam and puram, the inside and outside. So how does an artist come to terms with these two things? This has been a kind of, a struggle which I, as a painter, as a person who deals with visuals and representations through lines and forms, have always been struggling to do. For the last 2 to 3 months, because we have been living in closed doors, as a senior citizen, I'm not allowed to go out even. But everybody says, you stay indoors, don't go in, don't go out. Just like Mattis, I wanted to make a long brush and try to paint, but that's not what I did. What I did was I went into my studio and I did a whole spate of watercolors. I just picked up my watercolors and I did about 500, 600 watercolors over the last 2 to 3 months. But I wasn't ready to present these watercolors. I thought, why not have the earlier show, the earlier one which happened just prior to the pandemic. That was something which I thought I should put on the walls. And Alliance Francaise has been kind enough to have this exhibition as one of the first exhibitions in a kind of virtual museum. This is like what in the 1970s, Sadanand probably will remember it very well. Andre Malraux, when he spoke about silence, voices of silence, in his amazing kind of work, he spoke about a museum without walls. This is probably what we are going through. We are going through this museum without walls. We don't have a wall. All walls are breaking down, and although we are forced to stay indoors, we are staying indoors. We don't know what is indoors anymore, because we are able to break through that and go beyond that and reach out to the others through this cyber world. So this museum without walls, this is the kind of thing which I had in mind, and that has come through as a reality. I don't know. Normally, I didn't expect to speak this much, but Sadanand was very inspiring, and he frame the whole, the whole history of art, as artists who grew up over the last 30, 40 years, through this world of art, east, west, north, south, or wherever it is, traditional art, conventional art, market art, consumer art, or whatever. So all those things, all those struggles and the forms and formlessness of things has been placed there in the context of abstractions. There's nothing called abstraction. As a painter, I have felt that, there is nothing. Even when I'm doing landscapes or figurative works, everything is abstract. Whatever we are seeing, we are abstracting things in terms of, forms and lines and colors. There is nothing called forms, lines, and colors in nature. We give it that shape. That is probably one of the reasons why at one point, Sadanand had mentioned that in my show, Interior Spaces, there are certain paintings where certain individual works where I have struggled to give a kind of figurative composition or a kind of deliberateness. Uh, uh, I think it is, everything happens in a spontaneous way. Even this deliberations, like for instance, I wouldn't rub off my lines. I wouldn't remove my the manner in which I have come to a certain structure and form. I want that to be a kind of open text. The whole context of my painting should be an open text, and this is why I have left it like that. So this interior forms, which actually led me to interior spaces, as I call them. There are numbers, there are 40 odd paintings, and these 40 odd paintings become a kind of it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You can put them all together, and it's not like individual. They can stand alone. They are also standalone paintings, but they try to complete or maybe create a certain kind of not organic completeness, but a sense of certain completeness in terms of the visual experience. So. One doesn't like to intellectualize, but it so happened that this is a kind of familial situation. All of us are family, and all of us sit together and talk. So I felt that I should share whatever I had in my mind. I had planned to say just the word of thanks. Say that I should be eternally grateful to Eva Martin for making this a possibility, and the Alliance Francaise team, which actually made it a possibility, and this is a good experience. This exhibition is on till the 30th of this month, so we can always visit that. And I would also like to go in and say that on my own. And I wanted to thank Priyanka for taking pains to organize this meeting, and a huge thanks to Sadanand Menon for having you know agreed to come and agreed to be present here despite his busy schedule, and then give a kind of whole framework to. I have taken substantial notes of what you have been saying, sir, so that I have a whole idea of how to frame my own works and see them in a different perspective. It's good to see your own works in a different light. How you are able to experience them. I'm so worried because living in Kerala in the present, we really don't know which where you belong, what you are, uh, uh, where you are. Just like KG Da, talking about living tradition. This is a living tradition, and it's continuing. It's not past or present or future. It's a tradition where we are all struggling and going through. And this living tradition is something which I am trying to experience through my works, and I am eternally thankful to Sadanand for having given me such a good framework of my own shows. Thank you very much, Sadanand. So I think the audience deserve a great word of thanks, and I'm eternally grateful. TP Srinivasan sir, despite your busy schedule, I see that you have been here all through patiently listening to all of our speeches, and I'm sure that you will take time to see my exhibition. Uh, um, I see a lot of familiar faces. Thank you all for being here and being able to participate. This is the initiation of this first virtual exhibition. And Priyanka will probably explain the process of how this exhibition will continue and how we are able to get in through this link. And if you have opinions and comments, please do write in the chat box, or you could also look at my Gmail. I have also given my Gmail in the exhibition hall. Priyanka said, there should be a small address place where I can leave my address, and do please put that exhibition name, Interior Spaces, comments in the subject box and mail it to me. You can also write to the Alliance Francaise if you so wish to. Thank you all. Thank you all once again. And okay, I don't know if there are questions and what Priyanka has in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. I think we can move on to the Q&A sessions. If anybody has any questions, you can maybe type on the chat box.
Or you can unmute yourself and ask the question also, it's possible.
Yeah. Anything.
I had a question for Mr. TPS. Mr. TPS Srinivasan, I had a question for you. You're sitting in front of a very interesting painting. Behind your head, there is a painting. Whose is that? Do you know whose work is it? Can't hear you. You have to unmute. Can't hear you.
Yeah. She is now a very famous painter, but she did that when she was 9 years old.
Oh,
I purchased it from her. I was the one who first purchased the painting from her. Now her paintings cost thousands. So it was an investment I made when she was 9 years old. This was her first work, actually.
what's her name?
Sitaram. Her name is Devi Sitaram. She's going to be in the Biennale this time.
Okay, very nice.
Very interesting. She has developed this munda, men in mundas in Kerala. And she is interpreted in various ways. Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear. So you have a good eye. You've chosen well.
Yeah. We had a deal with her. I said, you buy my book, I buy your painting. So it was not a good business deal, but I enjoy that very much. I always keep it at my study. Well, I enjoyed listening to you, my God. I mean, such vast knowledge and such understanding. I was completely lost, but at least realized the meaning of all this to a certain extent. But as you said, this is not my cup of tea. I like Murali, that's why I came, not because I like his paintings. But now I'll probably, over a period of time, learn to understand and appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to ask any questions?
I can see some very positive comments in the chat box. Thank you very much. Don't hesitate to unmute yourself and ask some questions if you have any.
Yeah, I am Professor Srikumar from Pondicherry. I would like to ask Professor Murali that whether he is going to exhibit virtually his watercolor paintings, what he was mentioning before.
Oh, hi. Yeah. Uh, Talking about watercolors, we have a technical issue which I have to sort out, because many people think that artists who deal with watercolors, who have worked with watercolors, are just they are training themselves. It's like a kind of schooling experience, and what you put on show normally is large framed works done in oils on canvas, or acrylic or mixed medium or things like that. But watercolors are highly expressive and transparent medium, and it requires a tremendous sort of deftness and skill. You have to keep on working if you want to get the kind of experience that you would like to share with other people. So when I have set up a whole set of watercolors, I would be most happy to put them up. Some of them are already on the web, but I should plan to sort them out and have an exhibition of my watercolors. Thank you, Dr. Srikumar, for asking these questions. I am glad that you like my watercolors too.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sadanand, I don't know whether, since nobody has raised this question, I'm so impressed by the specific way in which you brought in this quote from Eco with the guerrilla warfare in the borders of meaning. This has actually set me thinking, because we are rubbing, different media, like, the literary expression, imaginative expression, visual arts, theater, cinema, music, all those things, how they rub shoulders with each other, and they create borders, new borders, and new ways of understanding. I think this guerrilla to raise a guerrilla warfare in the borders of meaning is an amazing,
Yeah, it's a very strong idea, and I think it stems from the fact that almost everything has got commodified. The commodities have very strong borders.
Yeah.
So, for example, we understand a novel in a particular manner, or we understand a painting in a particular manner. We are not still ready to see the seepages that can happen. It's like when you stand at the estuary of a river, it's a very, very fecund ecological space where the ocean and the river are meeting, and all kinds of life forms emerge there. But if you put a dam on it, if you block it, then this can't happen. So similarly, when we go in for commodification and productivization, we create borders, and that often they are not porous. So the transaction doesn't happen. And I think what Eco was proposing was that these kind of disciplinary borders should break down a bit.
Yes.
And new meanings can emerge.
Sure. Thank you.
So yeah, I think many people are now working in those areas.
Yeah.
Uchi Benale is a good example where many artists bring work which you can't define very easily. So it's a mix of visual plus movement plus audio plus video and various things like that. But you might be interested, Murali, in seeing the works of my friend Dashrath Patel. They are in he's no more, but his works are preserved in in a museum in his name, the Dashrath Patel Museum, at a place called Alibag, which is off Bombay. And it's about 40 minutes by boat to go. And he, towards the last 25 years of his life, he worked with paper collages and photography collages. And you might find some interesting echoes
Okay.
with what you are doing there.
Thank you.
Talking of Dashrath Patel, I spent some time with him long ago in Moscow. In Moscow, that was 74.
Festival of India.
He came and spent almost 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, fantastic.
Every evening we were meeting, and Ambassador Gujral, my boss, so he was close to him too, and so we spent a lot of time together. But I haven't seen any of his work, because those days we were talking about design, we were not talking about art. But very striking and very impressive personality. So we're very impressed.
Started his career as a painter and then moved slowly into design after about 15 years of working as a painter and a ceramist and so on. Then he was called upon to start the NID, and then he got 20 years he worked there. But I had curated a massive exhibition of his retrospective in the year 1998 in Delhi, the National Gallery of Modern Art in Delhi. The same thing was repeated in Bombay the next year, 1999. And then the whole thing went to Alibag, where a friend of his created this museum space. About 300 of his works are exhibited there, including paintings and collages and sculptural work and photographs and the design work that he did in NID, all those are kept there.
Good to remember him. Okay, I need to run off. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Sir.
Thank you.
I remember Hussein also mentioning that he was creating a gufa. Hussein, with his friend Doshi, he had created Hussein Doshi gufa, a cave where he was trying to put up his silk paintings on silk and transparent paper and things like that. So that was probably something which they had all done at the same time in a similar way.
That's an active gallery in Ahmedabad.
Yes. Yeah. I was, in fact, strangely enough, when Hussein, I did an interview with Hussein sometime back and many years ago. And Hussein was looking through my watercolors and he said, why don't you come and show them in Hussein Doshi Gufa? At that time, they were just preparing it. Somehow I couldn't make it. I really, now suddenly I regret not having taken that offer and gone there and did an exhibition. So suddenly I'm reminded of all these things, memories come flooding into our minds during this COVID times.
You can still take your works there. It's run by an art collector called Anil Relia.
Okay, I'll take his this thing from you.
They're very active.
I think I'll still do that. Priyanka, you can ask if there are some more questions.
Yeah, otherwise we can wind up. People can go.
If there aren't any further questions, then I guess we can wind up. Would anybody else like to ask? Okay.
I see a lot of familiar faces. I'm sure that they will all feel like asking, but I don't know why they are keeping quiet and keeping to the frontiers, to the edges. Okay.
Okay, so I guess then we come to the end of this session. I'd like to thank you all for joining, and I'll especially like to thank Dr. Murali Sivaramakrishnan for collaborating with us. It was really wonderful working with you, and also Mr. Sadanand Menon. In spite of your busy schedule, you were able to be with us here tonight, and thank you. And if anybody else would like to go through the exhibition again, I can send you all the link to the exhibition on your email, so you can go through it whenever you want. So thank you again. Have a good evening.
Good night. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. And it was a very nice experience. So as Mr. Sadanand Menon underlined, abstract art is an experience, and we should not look for a narrative. We have to live it, we have to feel it. It's an opportunity to express our own interpretation of the world. It gives us a freedom, right, to interpret what we see. But I would like, in the future, I hope that we will be able to have an exhibition in our facilities, because it's also something that we like to do. Hopefully we will be open soon, and we will be very happy to welcome all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All the best. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night, Murali. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Sadanand. Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Right. Good night.